Is there life beyond the grave? It has always been a belief of great thinkers that it must be that this is not the end. Can you prove that? Can you prove that that's the case? We believe that, like everything, the physical is going to decay. A person is going to die. But the soul, which is described as the breath of God that was blown into man at the time of his creation in the opening of the book of Genesis, the soul is from God. And just like God is eternal and infinite, so too is the soul that came from him. And so we believe that as one continues to identify with God, so long as he, in his life, retains that pure aspect of what God gave him, then one will continue to live on even after his body has failed and is no longer capable of functioning. Now, as I said, you cannot prove that. You cannot prove many things in life, but you should know that many great thinkers, Plato and others, considered the thought that the soul survives the body, and in fact that the soul is the very essence of the human being. You can't prove it, but you can't prove a lot of things in life. You can't prove that God exists, despite the fact that throughout the ages there have been those who have tried to prove, great philosophers, through what's known as the ontological or the cosmological, the teleological argument for God's existence, either that God exists, it can be argued through reason, or through the fact that we see that there is something here and something had to create this, it couldn't get here by itself, or by the fact there's a certain design to the world. Whatever the approach individuals have taken to try to prove God's existence, we know that it has not been accomplished. That proof has not been made. Because if it were, then everyone would believe in God. Doesn't mean that there isn't a God just because you can't prove it. In fact, some people would say to even ask that God exists is incredible. We know that we exist. We question that God exists. You can't prove certain things in life. How do you prove that you love someone? You don't prove you love someone by the activity you have in terms of your physical relationship. We all know there are things that happen every day between individuals that have nothing to do with love. You can't prove it by saying, I got a great gift from my spouse, because if that great gift was only once a year and the rest of the year that spouse is not kind and concerned and considerate for one's husband or wife, there's no doubt whatsoever in my mind, and I think yours, that will not be sufficient in order to show that you love someone, that you gave someone a great gift. Some things you can't prove. Some things are just ineffable. They're incapable of being stated in words. And they are so true, perhaps, that maybe they can't even be given over to that type of expression. A coroner once said, in regards to the soul, he said, I've been through hundreds of bodies in my lifetime, and I never saw a soul. There's no such thing as a soul. And he would say this to everyone, and what were they going to say back to him? And one day he ran into a brain surgeon, and the brain surgeon, after hearing this, said, you know what? I've been through hundreds of brains, and I've never seen a thought. Does that mean there are no thoughts? Of course there are thoughts. Just because we can't see it does not mean it's not there. In fact, I have an example for this, that imagine a lawyer, and this lawyer actually went to my congregation, once told me he actually heard me mention the idea that you can't prove everything, and he would use this idea in his closing arguments. He was actually a prosecutor. And the person who was accused would come in wearing his nice, beautiful suit and being all clean-shaven, looking like a great, wonderful person and a very wonderful citizen of the community. And the prosecutor would say, he would point to that person and say, now this person's a criminal, this person's a murderer. Now just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not true. And he would use this at the end of all his arguments. And I argued with him that he should perhaps give a big donation to my congregation as a result of getting his closing argument from this perspective. But again, there is a thought that we cannot prove everything in life, and yet we can see that such is the case. In the book Gesher HaChaim, there is a parable that is given in order to understand the notion that there could be life after death. And it goes as follows. There were once two individuals in the womb, and they're having a conversation. They continue to be in the womb where they are very warm and taken care of. And they get an idea one day that something may happen that's going to change their comfortable lives. One in the womb is a pessimist. He says to his fellow, you know, brother, he says, one day we're going to go out of that hole and it's going to be terrible. There's going to be hell out there and it's going to be the end. And the brother says, well, what are you talking about? He says, I don't think that. I actually think one day we're going to go out and it's going to be a different type of life. The pessimist says, what are you talking about? That's just your survival instinct talking. You're kidding yourself. This and here, it's wonderful. Here we're warm. Here we have everything, all the food that we need. Here we have the perfect type of environment. Nothing could be better than this. Out there, it can only be the end. And again, the other brother, who's the optimist, says, I don't think so. I think, in fact, in here, we are bent over. Out there, we will stand erect. In here, our hands are curled and we can't grasp anything. But out there, our hands will be able to move. In here, we can't walk. We can't do anything except stay in this little space. But outside of this place, we will be able to do more, to travel long distances. And again, the other one says, you're crazy. There's no such thing as out there. I'm telling you, that's it. So anyway, as they're discussing, and this goes on day after day, finally, the day of birth comes, and the mother is going under terrible travails. And so the pessimist is saying inside, they think it's an earthquake. Hold on, this is it. This is the end. It's all over now. Hold on for dear life, brother. And he hears his brother go out first out of the womb. And outside, he hears everyone screaming, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. Everyone screaming, yelling. He thinks that he hears his brother crying. And he says, it's chaos out there. It's all over. Not recognizing that, in fact, on the other side of the womb, there was another life, even a more significant life than one could imagine while he was in the womb. So too, just like in the mother's womb, a baby is there for some 9 months. So when a person lives on this earth for hopefully 90 years, even more, in that situation, we also believe that there is a life after this life. You can't prove it, but we believe it very firmly. And that in fact, beyond this world, if one has lived righteously here, we can have faith that that soul that has left this earth, our dear one, our beloved, is continuing to live on in a wonderful way that we cannot imagine with God. I am Rabbi Balk, the Rabbinic Advisor for eShiva.com.